get my 6. Hey. All right, it still works. I found something already. Hey everybody, welcome back to the greatest homesteading channel on the planet that has absolutely nothing whatsoever to do with homesteading off the grid. Today, at last, oh, there's metal in the phone. We are beginning the search for the lost manuscript of Utopia Shattered. Probably the greatest thing I've ever written in my life. It's never seen the light of day. It's never been read. It's never been told. It's never been published. It was so great. I said, no, this is too good for the modern state of mankind. Just, we don't deserve this piece of literature right now. So I printed it off, never saved it to the cloud. I took the paper it was printed on. I put it together with a metal paper clip, put it in a pillowcase, and I hope to God I had the foresight to put that pillowcase inside like a plastic bag. Then I buried it somewhere in my yard. And then my yard's only like 6 acres. So yeah, there's this and that, and then the whole other side, and the fruit orchard. But I've decided to seek it out, dig it up, find it, and publish it. Because a lot of folks have said they wanted to hear it when I talked about this. So I'm like over an iron ore deposit or something. So folks, here's the deal. And we got some background noise going on. Try not to let that distract you. It doesn't really matter. I got the front door and the back door of the house open with smoke rolling out. You might hear my wife screaming in a foreign language. She's talking to a couple of her Filipino friends. They're speaking Tagalog and they scream at each other. It's like, it's a cultural thing. It's so crazy when you're over there. And I've spent 8 years living over there. So I'm speaking from experience, not opinions or what I saw on the cable network news thing or whatever. Okay. It's just a harsh, and this is common throughout Asia, especially China. If you sit in an airport in China and just watch people communicate and interact with each other, it's like they're screaming at each other. But even in the Philippines, and it's like you're expecting it to come to blows any minute because they're just screaming at each other. And it seems heated and emotional, but it's not. That's just how they speak the language in their culture. And it's really neat because then when they'll convert to English to speak to you, if you're an English-speaking person and you don't speak their language, it's smooth and calm, just like we typically would speak it when we're not arguing. And so it's interesting. You see these beautiful women, they'll speak, and the good-looking guys, they speak in, nice, calm. Oh, this person's very warm and inviting. Then they'll speak to somebody within their own culture in their own language, and they're screaming at each other. It's like, oh, how could this nice person be getting ready to fight? So anyway, so you got that. Background noise. There's a guy lives down there somewhere who's like a massive hoarder, and like he works on his hoarding shed twice a year. Once in the spring for about 10 days and once in the fall. Why? Well, because for those 2-week periods, the temperature is only plus or minus 2 degrees from what the thermostat is set in the house. Now, once the temperature breaks that barrier and gets a little too warm in the spring or too cold here in the fall going into the winter, the dude's gone. So we won't have to worry about that background noise again. But that doesn't matter because we're not necessarily listening for tree knocks, so we always want to be aware of them. So watch for that, listen for that, watch for moving in the backdrop. What's a hoarding shed? What's just where these hoarders just pile their junk and they take care of it. This is a pretty serious thing. I'm not going to make fun of it because I never really realized this, but it's actually a severe mental health issue. I got to take a class on hoarding when I was in the Army. Why? I'm going to be honest with you, because I got caught hoarding. Now, hear me out. I'm not a hoarder. I don't have any sort of issues that would cause me to hoard, and this was many years ago, and I haven't done it since. But here's the situation, and this is how I came to learn so much about hoarding. Okay, number one, if you've never served in the military, you might not know, you probably don't know this, and even if you have served in the military, you still might not know this. Hoarding is a violation of the USMJ, U.S. Military Justice, Code of Justice. It's a crime. It is a punishable crime in the U.S. military to get caught hoarding. What? Now, why is this? It's because it's just a massive pain in the butt. You're not going to get anything done. Your area is cluttered. You got all this crap, and that's all it is. So I found out the hard way, because when I was in Iraq, we would have like the latrine area. This is a true story. It's one of those crazy, weird, true stories that most people don't tell. They might be embarrassed by it, or, it's a war story that doesn't involve killing and explosions and all this stuff. But listen, when I was in Iraq, I was already in my mid-30s because I enlisted late after 9/11. So when I deployed, I think I turned 36 while I was in Iraq, actually, 35 at airborne school. And I kept my mouth shut about my birthday in Iraq, because when I turned 35 at airborne school, down at Fort Benning, Georgia, we were on, I think, Tower Week. So you got Ground Week, Tower Week, Jump Week. It's a three-week course. The first week is called Ground Week. They're teaching you how to fall properly when you jump from a plane. And so you're basically just jumping up into the air and trying to fall and land the way they teach you. Well, in the second week, they call it Tower Week. You start jumping from elevated levels. So you'll first start from like a 6-foot tall platform. Then they move you up to a 12-foot tall platform where you're actually attached to cables. So you're swinging and somebody has a hold of the harness in case you actually don't do it properly. It's called PLF, parachute landing fall. It's so funny because you've got to actually perfect the PLF, the parachute landing fall, before you're checked off to be allowed to jump out of the plane in the final week. But here's the thing. No one ever perfects a PLF jumping out of a plane. You can get it right 100 times on the ground. You'll never get it right once in a plane. All my airborne brothers and sisters know this, right? So anyway, and then that third week, of course, you jump out of the planes. So we're in Tower Week, and I think it was like the 6th. Fortunately, my birthday was at the beginning of the week, because you make it up to that 12-foot tower, and then eventually there's like a 20-plus foot tower that's almost like a, what do you call it, zip line? Did you see that video where my family and I last winter, when we spent the winter in the Philippines, zip lined from one island to another? That was the most amazing zip line experience we've ever had. We've got that on video. You've got to go back through the channel to find it. It's from the videos we were making while we were in the Philippines last winter. So anyway, you're on a tower as high as a zipline tower, there at the final day or last 2 days of Tower Week. So we were on like the 6-foot platform, and I opened my stupid mouth about how it was my birthday. The airborne instructor walks up to me, says, "Hey, Lake, happy birthday. How old are you?" I said, 35, airborne instructor, sergeant, whatever you're supposed to call him. And he said, "Oh, great. You're always going to remember this one." He made me jump and fall 35 times that day. Yes. And he was right. I'm a 50-year-old man now. I'm getting ready to turn 51, so that was almost 16 years ago, and I absolutely remember that birthday. Okay? So, when I turned 36 the following year in Mosul, Iraq, I kept my mouth shut. Okay? So, but here's the deal. I was in Iraq, and you're housed based upon your rank. And that's the folks, the military is very segregated, and it's segregated by rank. So that was one of my frustrations I had as a 35-year-old man, because I had just enlisted, after 9/11. I went in as an E4. I could have gone in as an officer, but I didn't care about rank. I didn't want to do it as a career. I wanted to do one term, do one deployment as a boot on the ground, as a soldier in the crap, and then be done and go back to the private sector. And that's what I did. So I'm in there. I'm a 35-year-old man who had owned a home, been married, had children, gone through a divorce, worked in business 8 years as a stockbroker. So I knew about efficiency and a lot of more mature concepts about life, because I'd actually lived through some of it. And then I was there with a bunch of 18 and 19-year-old guys. And I kind of had to lower my maturity level. It was like one of those go along to get along things. I had a choice. I could have acted a fool a bit and lowered my maturity level, or I could have been a 35-year-old business dude looking down at everybody because they're a bunch of kids that didn't have my experiences. And guess what? Who would be the first guy to maybe accidentally be fratricided in a firefight? Let me tell you, there's stuff that happens over there I will never tell, but no one else will either. But let me tell you, they changed it from friendly fire to fratricide because it wasn't done on accident. That's all I'm going to say. Okay. So anyway, This is one of the things you notice as an almost middle-aged guy or an older person that people at 18 quite don't get. Stuff costs money. Everything costs money. Anything you use costs money. And it's funny because, I coach middle school football now, and the kids will come to practice, they put their stuff down, and then they'll run off onto the field, and they're doing all this, all that. I might run over to maybe get a pad for blocking or grab an extra ball or something, and I'll look around and I'll notice there's like 6 iPhones laying out in the direct sunlight face up. And well, these kids clearly aren't paying for their own iPhones. And so I'd put them under their stuff. I'd say, hey guys, now all the kids have been trained. They put their phones under something so it doesn't get hit and destroyed by the sunlight. But I use that example to continue this story. Body wash. I mean, a bottle of body wash. What is that stuff? $5 or $6 a bottle now? So anyway, we had a communal latrine area where we would take our showers and whatnot. And so I would go in the shower, get in whatever shower stall, and you'd see like 2 or 3 brand new bottles of like this body wash there. Or when you go to the sink to brush your teeth, there's like all these brand new tubes of toothpaste everywhere, right? So, and sorry I didn't give that trigger warning about wiping my nose. I actually did bring a tissue out here for that purpose. Excuse me. All right, so I started thinking, I should just take that and put it in my locker. And I thought, well, wait a minute, it's not yours to take, so don't. So then I put a time frame on it. I said, okay, if this stuff's still here in like 24 hours, because the people, well, here's something you don't know about combat and war profiteering and all this too. So KBR's people would come in like once a day and they'd clean that place. They would throw all that away. It would go in the garbage. So KBR, what was that? Kellogg, Brown and Root. It was a spinoff from Halliburton. After Halliburton got the bad name for all their war profiteering, they just did a spinoff, called it KBR. Kept doing the war profiteering, but the name association was disconnected, so nobody really, but those of us who were there saw it. So what they would do, like KBR, they'd get these big contracts from the U.S. government. So the U.S. government is trying to hire a contractor to provide cleaning services for the latrines, cleaning services for the laundry area, the people to wash the laundry, in the chow hall to cook the food, clean up after all that. So they would come up with, say, okay, a reasonable rate of pay for this is, say, something like $100,000 a year. You're in a combat zone, you're in Iraq, you're cooking, you're cleaning, and we need, say, 1,000 people to do this. So that's 100,000 times, or 100 times, I mean, you're looking at whatever, big ton of money, right? So KBR would put their numbers together. They'd go to the DoD, Department of Defense, and say, okay, this is how much money we need to make this contract secure, to hire enough people to come over here and clean up after these soldiers, sailors, airmen, and Marines. So the DoD says, that's probably what I'd want to get paid too if I was leaving my family and going to a crap hole like Iraq or Afghanistan and just cleaning up literally the crap hole in the latrine. I'd want that too. So yeah, we'll grant you $100,000 per employee. Here, KBR got the contract. Yay. Well, what's KBR do? They go to Pakistan, they go to Philippines, they go to Thailand, they go to Indonesia, they go to Nepal, and this is where they hire their workers. Hey, we need somebody who's willing to work for our company, go to Iraq, clean toilets for a year. Who wants to do it? Oh, they all start raising their hands before they even find out how much money is involved, right? KBR paid them $200 a month approximately. Hey, they'd still do it. Why? Because in the Philippines, for example, the average monthly salary is about $150 a month. Well, now you're giving people opportunities to make almost twice that. They were taking it. Wait a minute. The U.S. government gave KBR $100,000 per person, and they're going to hire 1,000 of these people, and you're telling me they're only going to give them how much for that year? $5,000 at the absolute max. $5,000 at the absolute max. They were called TCNs, third country nationalists, who would go there. Their lives were on the line too, because when those mortars came into our FOBs, forward operating bases, and they blew up, those folks were just at the same risk as we were, and they were making about $5,000 a year at most to do it. Well, what about the other $95,000? Well, profit. It's KBR profit. And that's how it goes. And that's how it goes with all the contracting companies. I'll tell you what. You should have seen the number of soldiers that I deployed with who were so excited to run back to Iraq once they got out of the National Guard, because I was a guard. I was with the Guard unit attached to an active Army unit. to make that money, because now they'll pay the Americans huge sums to be managers. Basically, some American dude, hey, yeah, man, we'll give you 200 grand a year for you to make sure that those guys from Nepal and the Philippines and Indonesia are doing their jobs. So, man, you had guys, I knew Americans that would go over there for 5 years, 6 years, 8 years, just not come home and just bank that money. They would go over there, they'd make $1 million in 4 or 5 years. They haven't worked since. They were just sitting there making sure the TCNs, third country nationals, were doing their jobs for $5,000 a year. So anyway, yeah, this actually has to do with hoarding. So I saw that they were throwing away all of this body wash and toothpaste and all this stuff. And I was like, this is nuts. That stuff, they were throwing away probably $1,000 a day worth of toiletries that has been opened and used once. Now, you're asking, where did all these young people get all this stuff to just waste like that? They just bought it at the PX. They were 18, 19 years old, never had a paycheck before. Now they're in Iraq on deployment getting $4,000, $5,000 a month. And they don't have rent back home. They don't have a mortgage. Most of them didn't have children. No financial responsibility. So it's no big deal to go back to the PX and just piss away another $5 or $6 on a bottle of body wash. So anyway, here's what I started doing. I was like, this is crazy. So I started taking it and putting it in this extra spare locker I had in my CHU. That's company housing unit. It's where we all slept. 5 of us slept in a 20 feet by 20 feet space for a year. 5 of us. So I had like 4 by 4. I swear, you had a bunk, you had your bed, and you had a row of lockers, and that's it. That's the only space you had. So, but we were usually out on mission anyway. Out on we provided security for the main supply line in all of Iraq. So we were usually on mission, but when we were back, that's the only space we had. So I started collecting the body wash and the toothpaste and sticking it in that empty locker I had. And I told my guys that lived with me, and I told all the people in my unit that lived right there, I was like, you guys need body wash or toothpaste, come here and get it. Okay. And they would. People would come in and out and they'd get what they needed. Well, I started packing this stuff up to send home because I thought, I'm getting more of this stuff out of here than people are even using. If I send this home by the time this deployment's over, I'm not going to have to spend money on toothpaste or body wash for like literally more than a decade. And then you factor in inflation, the way the stuff is going to go up and cost even more 10 years out. I'm just seeing money savings, right? And that was from being that older guy with some experience that had to buy all this stuff before for an entire family, right? Well, they would do these health and welfare checks in our CHUs where we lived. And they'd come through like every 2 weeks, just making sure you weren't being a dirty bastard, making sure you were keeping your small space clean, keeping it sanitary. And little did I know, to make sure you weren't hoarding. So I got busted for hoarding, and I had to take a class on hoarding. So this is where I learned about it. First thing they did was give me like a psychological evaluation. They only got about halfway through it, and it was a guy that was a little bit older than me, and he said, okay, stop. He says, we don't need to go through all this. He says, I know that you weren't doing what you were doing, because I explained to him what I just explained to you. He asked me, why were you hoarding all these, bathroom products, personal hygiene products? So I explained to him, and he says, okay, listen, this is why you have to take this class, because this is a pretty serious deal. He says, I understand why you were doing it. And the guy told me, I have no concern with your like this being a mental health issue with you. It was a money savings issue. He says, but here is what we know about hoarding, and this is why we actually make it illegal in the Army. Okay, hoarding is not the direct result of any singular mental health issue. However, it can be the result of multiple mental health issues. It begins, and you can Google this. Because I did before I actually started this to make sure I'm still fresh on this. And I'm like, yep, that's what the guy said. This hasn't changed. And the knowledge of hoarding has not changed in the last 16 years since I was in Iraq and had this lecture. So the behavior will typically start between the ages of 15 and 19. Okay, young. But it's a sign. It's a sign. If you see somebody in that age group who begins hoarding, you need to get it in check. And that's what the military does by making it illegal. I mean, you can lose rank, you can lose pay, you can be given extra duty as punishment. And they do this so you'll stop. And let me tell you, they're saving those young soldiers, sailors, airmen, and Marines and airwomen a life of hurt. Because typically, hoarders are this. They're people who cannot make decisions. They're very indecisive. And if you think about it, like you have something you want to throw away. Let's say this metal detector, just as an example. Do I throw it away or do I keep it? Well, then the hoarders will come into this dilemma of like, wait a minute, now if I keep it, I can always come back and visit this decision at a later time. But if I throw it away, it's gone. Then there's nothing I can do about it. So there's this sense of loss of control. Hoarders typically suffer from OCD, obsessive compulsive disorder. They have issue. They are control freaks. They want to control situations. They want to control other people. They typically will not put themselves in a position where they're not in control. And a lot of times, if it continues, it will advance to agoraphobia. So you see, it's there's something metal here. I got to dig it up in a minute. The stereotypical, say, cat lady never leaves her house, never goes outside, walks around in her pink bathrobe and her pink bunny rabbit slippers, and she's got 20 cats. And her house is just a cluttered mess. It's like boxes in every room piled 6 feet high, and you got to go through the trails. And it's stuff she hasn't seen in 40 years, some of it. Hey, that's the stereotype we think of, but that's legitimately what it leads to. So, and we all know that person, okay? And so I've always made it a goal not to become that person. It was a wake-up call. Listen, I got enough issues to deal with. I don't want another subscription. You know what I mean? So what I do at my house is like I don't want clutter. I don't want all this stuff. So if I bring something new into the house, say there's just something that just has to go in our living room. That thing was built to go in my living room. Okay, yeah, get it. Take it. Put it in your living room. But find one thing that you can get out. This one thing that you're not using, isn't necessary. Isn't that harsh? No. That keeps our house from getting cluttered. It keeps me from having storage sheds and outbuildings full of just crap. And it saves me a ton of money on storage fees. Get this. Last year in America, Americans collectively spent $38 billion on self-storage units. Now, I talked about this once in a video years ago, and I think I might have made a post about it on our Facebook page, Sick Twisted Humor. And by the way, thank you to all of you who are supporting that page. We just hit 1 million fans. 1 million fans on Sick Twisted Humor on Facebook about 4 days ago. Thanks for that. And thanks for supporting us at Sick Twisted Humor over on Instagram. We're up to 46,000 now just in the last couple of months. That's new. And of course, over 300,000 here. I talked about this, about American storage. And a couple of ladies came on and blasted me and said I didn't understand the problem with domestic violence in America as much as I should, because all this stuff in storage is from women who are abused and battered, and they have no place to put their stuff while them and their children are trying to flee from their tormentors and blah, blah, blah. Listen, I know that happens, and that's terrible. But there ain't $38 billion a year being generated. That would be a domestic violence outbreak akin to our obesity epidemic that you would just be hearing about and would be dealt with in a more authoritative way and effective way than just generating $38 billion in revenues for the storage industry. Listen, we are the world's largest consumeristic society. We are the most materialistic society. China exists because we buy all their crap that we don't need. Yeah, you go over there, I've been to China multiple times. It is a third world country and the people are not prosperous. Whatever, this isn't meant to go down the road of child labor and all that stuff, which they do still actually very much participate in. So anyway, there was somebody. This blew my mind. And I have friends that are that guy. You see them when you live out here in the country. You'll have the old farmers or whatever that has a barn bigger than my house, just full of crap because they're hoarders. I have a good friend that's very consumeristic and materialistic. God, I can't imagine how, if that guy would have gotten therapy 40 years ago, he'd be a multi-millionaire right now with no debt. But he has this hole in his soul he's always trying to fill by buying material stuff. He's got multiple storage units with stuff still new and in the box in it. This one guy there, I cannot remember who this was. Somebody asked me to help them like clear out their storage thing, because he was one of these guys. His wife was the breadwinner, and he liked that, and he kind of like enjoyed that. But she was checking in on him regularly to make sure he wasn't pissing away all the money she was working to earn to support the family. And so I guess he had a hoarder storage shed somewhere that I know the numbers because I asked. He asked me to clear it out so he could move this stuff into this new shed he got on his own property or something. Got something. He had made some arrangement to where he can now put all this stuff in storage and I have to pay for it because it's going to be on his property. I'm like, yeah. And I was like, what do you got in there? Is it something you need for like the work you do? He's like, well, it's just stuff I don't want to get rid of. So to fast forward to that point, I went and helped this guy, and it was literally a 20 foot by 20 foot or 30 by 30 storage space filled with just junk, metal. I think it might have been most of a car, or at least enough parts of it was like this pile of rust shaped like a car. And it wasn't even a good car. It wasn't even anything nice. It was some little something from the 70s that I guess the guy had, maybe first car or whatever. I'm like, did you already get all the good stuff out of here? I'm looking around thinking he must have had maybe some pricey firearms or something in here, or maybe even some jewelry, and maybe he'd already come and got that. Guy's like, nah, this is it. I'm like, there was literally nothing of monetary value in there. Like if you were to have a yard sale, nobody would have bought this stuff. So we're loading, getting it out of there, and he's talking about how great it is because he won't have to worry about his wife nagging at him all the time about the monthly fees. And I said, well, yeah, it's none of my business, but I'm curious, how much is it? And it was like $200 a month. I'm like, yeah, wow, that would be a lot to pay just to store crap that's useless and you'll never use. How long have you had it in here? I swear, I wish I could remember who that was. I think they had recently moved or something, and so this was a perfect opportunity for him to be able to get this stuff. I'm drawing a blank. I guess that's what happens when you're a month away from turning 51. And it's not so much that you're losing your memory, bro. It's just that you got so much to remember, it's hard to recall it all. That's true. I had another medical professional tell me that. So anyway, this guy had been paying $200 a month every month for over 10 years. Well, I did the math in my head like almost automatically because it's just the way my mind works. So what is that? $2,400 a year times 10 years. $24,000 spent to hoard. Just to hoard. Stuff that, yeah, I bet his wife was nagging. I'd be pissed off too. So anyway, now that I've given this 28-minute long lecture on hoarding, where it comes from, the dangers of it, the person working on their hoarding shed down there clearly is finished. Okay. Yeah, but I'll tell you, if you're doing it, you want to stop it. And if you see somebody that's doing it as a young person, stop it. Because this just builds on itself like a snowball. And these people will typically, by the time they get, toward the end, the golden years, they've never accomplished anything. They've never achieved anything. And it's all because they're so indecisive. When I was a financial planner and worked with money and people's money, we had to sort people into two groups. You had decision makers and you had information gatherers. And basically, if you're a business person, you want to do business and you're only paid when you execute business, we learned to stay away from the information gatherers. We wanted decision makers. Okay, these were people, hey, I got $100,000, I got to do something with it. What is it? Okay, here, we got this tax-free bond paying this or whatever, blue chip stocks paying these dividends. These are your two best options. Which do you prefer? If they say, I like this, or let's do a mix of both or whatever, but well, I don't know. I need to go research it. I need to do some more background checks on this. They never stop doing their research and the background checks. You go visit those people 40 years later, they're still doing their research and their background checks. They have never committed. Because they can't make a decision. They're indecisive. And the stuff just piles up. All this stuff they hoard, and it's like a mountain, an avalanche. And then they develop agoraphobia, and they're afraid to go out. It's just really, you don't want to end up that way. So now that we've gone on for 30 minutes, and I have proclaimed that we are going to indeed today find the missing manuscript of Utopia Shattered. And something is metalish here. Let's get to it. Now remember, that's a woodpecker. That's not my metal detector. Watch behind me, as someone may or may not be lurking back there, looming, watching us, trying to find the lost manuscripts. Get my 6, okay? Yeah, that's a woodpecker. I gotta make, all right. That's the woodpecker. Oh, right there. Let's see what, all right. Whoa, something over there too. Okay, so it seems like right here. Let's see if I can get the phone. You know, I only used this thing once, and that's when I made the demo video. It works really, really good. I found, now again, look, my house, see it? It's built in 1903. It's 2024, so for 121 years, people have lived here. I found, what did I find? I found like parts of lighting fixtures. Screws, bolts, chains, like the chains you would use to pull a light switch off and on, like an overhanging light. I didn't find anything of value. But again, remember, I only used it once. Gosh, I wish I could remember where I buried that book. I wouldn't have to be out here doing this so much. I wonder if I should just rewrite it. I wouldn't remember it. I wouldn't remember enough to do so. All right, I'm just going to dig. I'm going to put this here because you can't see Bigfoot Sasquatch if the camera's pointing directly at the ground. You know what I'm doing. All right, so after 20 minutes of digging, of which I didn't show you guys, I edited that out. I realized exactly what I was doing. So you remember I told you my house is 123 years old? We know back when they finally got around to building septic tanks and whatever, pipes and all this plumbing stuff I really don't understand. They started using metal, copper pipes, and basically my drain field runs right up through there, and I almost dug up one of the original pipes that went through here for whatever reason. Seriously, there used to be a water pump in this creek down here that provided water for this house, and we think maybe another one that used to maybe be up in the woods. There's no trace of it now. That's where I should go metal detecting. But anyway, I was digging up a pipe. So we'll have to get back at it tomorrow, see if we can find that lost manuscript of Utopia Shattered somewhere. Thanks for being here. Now, go through your house and declutter and throw crap away. If you haven't used it for more than a year, get rid of it before you get yourself a pretty serious, severe mental health condition. Thanks for being here with us, the most amazing homesteading channel on the planet that has nothing to do with homesteading off the grid. We'll see you for more next time.